This is a Flying Cow production.
Well, hello and welcome to Nostalgia Cow here on, of course, the Flying Cow Network. I, of course, am your host, the Flying Cow himself, Clay Johnson. And here on Nostalgia Cow is where we take entertainment, television, or film from our childhood, and we take a look at it and we reevaluate it and we see what we got here. And here with me today as my guest is the Mad Madam herself, Kelli Mehan. Kelli, how are you?
It's always good to be over here on the Flying Cow. So I feel like a bit back at home. So it's nice.
Absolutely. Still undefeated, uncrowned champion of movie battles. Yeah, absolutely. Always great to have you in the Flying Cow space.
Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of times I will reach out to somebody and I'll be like, "Hey, what kind of podcast would you like to do or something like that?" But for some reason I was just like, I'd really be interested in what media the Mad Madam grew up with. What shaped Kelli Mehan. And so
this is a big one then.
yeah. So I asked you if you'd like to do an episode of Nostalgia Cow, and you said yes. And I was like, okay, so what would you like to talk about? And you chose
the Babysitter's Club movie.
The Babysitter's Club movie. For anyone who is not familiar with it, because you might be saying, but that was a series on Netflix that came out just like a couple of years ago. It was also a movie in the mid-90s, exactly right in the middle.
95, right on.
95, yes. It was released in 1995. It was directed by Melanie. What am I doing? Melanie. Melanie Mayron, yes. And let's see, the music was by David Michael Frank. And it starred Skylar Fisk, Brie Blair, Trisha Joe, Rachel Lee Cook, Larissa Olenek, Zelda Harris, Stacey Lee Ramsover, and more. Those are just the lead girls that I named. I didn't even name any of the adults. We'll talk about them a little bit later. Yes, but Kelli, why did you choose the Babysitter's Club? Obviously, we're familiar with the IP from the books. I definitely saw these books as a kid, but being a boy that grew up in Arkansas, that was girl stuff. Now that
absolutely,
now I'm like, well, that was a dumb attitude to have. But
same. I'm like, this is very girly, and I'm like, it's really because of the resurgence of it, it's really been at the forefront. So not only do we have like the Netflix series, but I grew up with at least 100 of the original books. Like I loved these books. I definitely collected them. I wish I held on to them. Like I can still smell them. It's like those sort of really brown books. And working in a school library, our library still had them. And I reckon I'm like, these are still here from 96. Like when the school opened, I reckon these are like foundation books right here.
I'm sure.
And one of them was the novelization of the Babysitter's Club movie.
Nice.
So remember when they used to do like the tie-in books and they had the photos in the middle of the books? Of like the movie stills and things like that. It's got all that. Nice. But because of the new Netflix series, they also have brought out graphic novel versions of the original novels.
Wow.
So they are the most popular books in my school. And it ranges from 8 all the way to my 11-year-olds will read it. So like at least 3/4 of my school are reading the Babysitter's Club again, but in graphic novel form, and falling in love with the characters again. So I'm like, I need to revisit this because this is one I wore out on VHS for sure. There's just something, as you said, like we were all familiar with the IP. It's definitely one growing up. It gives me very Ninja Turtle vibes where because of the different range of personalities, there is someone you can connect with. So it gives me that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I can see why
at first when you said Ninja Turtles, I was like, where are you going with this? Because I don't really see.
Actually, when Stacey busts out the nunchucks, like
that blew my mind. I was like, Stacey, I thought she would have had the size. I mean, for crying out loud, she.
But which one does machines?
I mean that's got to be what's her name? Christy. Christy does machines.
Oh yes.
Or Claudia. Claudia's pretty good.
Marianne's the quiet one. I reckon she'd be into tech.
True. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what I like, is like each girl has a very distinct personality. So like I grew up probably very close in personality to Marianne, in the sense like she was more quiet, more studious, maybe a little bit of a pushover, but just wanted to make peace with everything. But did I want to be Stacey? Absolutely. Like to be like a glamorous young lady from New York.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's just what's made me want to revisit this film, and I've just fallen in love with it all over again. When I hear that when you really need a friend, like that start, really it like made my heart beat. Like it just threw me back to the 90s straight away. So yes. Thank you for watching it with me.
No problem. So I'm assuming you had this on did you guys have VHS or Betamax? VHS. Okay, I wasn't sure which one was over there.
No, Betamax and Laserdisc. I'm a little bit before my time, but big VHS collection. Definitely went down to Blockbuster, 10 weeklies, that sort of thing. This was one I don't think I owned, but felt like I owned for the amount of times that we rented it.
Sure. Yeah, okay. So yeah, I mean, I definitely had movies like that as a kid. Oddly, the two films that I rented the most as a child and requested were Sleeping Beauty, understandable, and Better Off Dead.
I have not seen it. I need to. Okay. It's one of my big 80s gaps.
Okay, but yeah, we might have to make some plans for another podcast, because I'm just I will say, like I said, I was aware of the book series, never read them as a child again, just not the type of thing I would have naturally dug into.
Yeah.
But I will say, this movie would have used 95. So it would have come out the year I turned 13.
Mm-hmm.
I would have watched this movie just for all the girls in the cast.
For the girls, yeah.
And I would have had a crush on all of them. Because, I mean, number one, just right off the top, Larissa Oleynik and Rachel Lee Cook, two of my absolute... well, I mean, I will say I didn't see much of Rachel Lee Cook till later. But, I mean, this was right after the beginning of Alex Mack, and I was absolutely in love with Alex. That's the main reason I watched that show.
Yes, one of the biggest hits on Nickelodeon at the time, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. The girls were watching it because it was a cool girl with a superpower, and the boys were watching it because Alex Mack was hot. So, but I mean, it was also a fun show. But I absolutely would have watched this just for and I will say I didn't have a lot of, first of all, before rewatching it for this podcast, when was the last time you had watched this movie? Do you have any?
I watched it about 3 months ago because I picked it for one of my trivia strengths.
Okay.
Because I've been doing a nostalgia deep dive, and I've just got a list of like Kelly's most favorite VHS films, and that's what I picked for my strength movies. So people have got like Grease 2, Romeo and Michelle, like people have gotten all that.
Yeah, nice.
But before that, it would have been a good 10 years or so.
Okay. So before you dived into it with the biggest gap, like what were your thoughts going in? Did you feel like it was going to feel the same? Were you a little trepidatious? Were you nervous going into it? Like, what were your thoughts?
I had the highest hopes because I just remember it being good. So it's not one of those ones like where I would go back and go, oh, this could be problematic, or, oh, I wonder if there's really bad acting and I'm going to be like nervous about it. I just remember this was a good film, and I just wasn't disappointed. So I'm very happy.
Well, that's good. Yeah, like I said, I really didn't know what to expect. You know, I have long since gotten over my this is girl movie kind of, that's childish.
But that's just how it was growing up in like the 80s, 90s.
100%.
It was very gendered
and
media.
it was encouraged, by everyone at the time. But yeah, so I didn't really know what to expect, and we'll get into the film itself, but just to kind of give my cursory thoughts, I enjoyed this. I mean, there are, is it a perfect movie? No. There are definitely some flaws. There's a lot of logic here that doesn't make sense. And I do have at least 2 soapboxes for this movie. I'm just going to lay that out right now. We'll get to those in a little bit. But overall, I enjoyed it. And in my opinion, the strength of this film is the girls
and their friendship, for sure.
Yes. I mean, not to say that their performances are impeccable. You can tell some of them, this is their first. I mean, literally, Rachel Lee Cook, apparently this was her first film.
And she's the strongest one.
Yes, I was just about to say that. Yes. Oddly, she is the strongest one. I mean, I will say I didn't actually look at her filmography to see if it was her very first acting credit, but I do know that it was her first film.
No, she's a natural as Marianne. She's great.
In fact, that's one of my notes, because there was definitely a bit of, okay, you can tell just by the way that they're saying these lines that they just learned them, kind of thing. But I wrote down, I was like, Rachel Lee Cook is already a solid actor right now.
Agreed.
I mean, granted, she's also, because of her size, one of the oldest in the cast. I believe she would have been like 15 or 16 when they shot this. But, still, she obviously has, the chops. And, even those that were a little bit more stilted, you could tell. I wasn't sure if they had filmed this in sequence, but it kind of feels like they did at least a little bit, because they get better as they go on.
Fair.
So, a lot of that stiltedness kind of drops, and not all of it, but it becomes a little bit more natural. But like I said, that doesn't really matter. It's that their performances become natural, and it's just fun to watch these girls. If I had to give one word to this film, I would just say pleasant.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does remind me of a lot of those mid-90s films of like those coming of age stories and friendship stories. And I think it fits in with that. I was going to ask, do you know like how well it was received? Because you knew of it. And obviously I think only I knew of it because I loved the books, and the TV series was on VHS, like the old, really old one. But I don't know many people who have seen it or know of it, if it was a big property hit.
Here is the thing. It did not make much money. It had a budget of 6.5 million. It made 9.6 million. So, it did make over its budget and had a little bit of a return, but obviously not enough for them to do any sequels or anything like that. And I can also tell you that it currently has an approval rating of 67% on Rotten Tomatoes. How much stock you put into that,
Who's gone back to review it is always interesting with older movies.
Right. Exactly. But it, even when it came out, it had mixed to favorable reviews. So, that's not bad. But again, like I said, it's not the strongest film No. We're going to get into the story a little bit, and it's a little all over the place. it's a bit of a mess, this film. But whoever was the casting director
nailed it.
Deserves all the credit for what works in this movie, because it is the casting really that makes any of this work.
Very true.
Even the casting of Christy's dad, which is easily the most problematic character in the entire film. But they cast an actor who is likable. Peter Horton, very likable. When I think about what he did to Christy, I'm like, you need to be punched in the face, sir.
Oh, and he's deserving of many punches.
But when he's there spending time with her, I'm like, I'm conflicted because I
I think the mum touches on that really well in her scene. She sums that up nicely.
Yeah. Well, should we jump into the plot, or
let's go. I'm ready.
Should I do my soapboxes first?
Oh, up to you. Are we ready for a soapbox, or you want to lay some groundwork?
Yeah. Let's lay some groundwork, because otherwise it might not all make sense.
Yes.
But, basically, just to kind of give an overall idea of the film, this follows the Babysitters Club, which is made up of, they're basically a bunch of 13-year-olds running a babysitting agency.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Great idea.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. And they pool all their money, and then they buy stuff for their company, all this kind of stuff. So, yeah. But it's made up of 7 babysitters. I think about 5 of them are all like around the same age. They're all 13. Like 13. Yeah. And then there's
Mallory and Jesse
more...
11.
Okay, 11. I was like, they mentioned specifically that they're junior babysitters, but they never actually say their ages, or that I remember.
Okay. That's knowledge I'm bringing from the series.
From the series. Okay, so that makes sense. But yes, so basically, they are running this establishment, and we see them kind of, taking their phone calls. And I will say, I really like the opening credits, because we get various calls from various parents who,
and their big schedule and everything.
Right. And everything like that. But it was at that point that I realized this is an agency. This is not just some girls that like have, like
fun
like have their like regular babysitting client or something. These girls are like in the hustle.
They have they have your president, vice president, like they have all their positions filled. Everyone's got a job and a task. They've got dues. They've got meeting notes. I've got everything.
Yeah. It's very professional for 13-year-olds. Let me just say, 13-year-old boys could not have done this.
No organization like that.
No. The only reason a group of boys this age gets together is just to decide which girl in school is the hottest. That's it. And most of it's going to be like, yeah. Not a lot of real words in that. I'm just going to tell you. But yeah, so at a certain point, it is introduced to the idea that for the summer, they're going to try to earn a whole lot of extra money. So they're going to do basically a day camp for not only their regulars, but for anyone in town who might want to just ditch their kids for the summer. And again, they have a really solid business model for this camp.
They've got stamps with paid on it. I'm like,
right. I will say though, when I was hearing their planning and they're like talking about getting porta potties, I was like, what kind of overhead are you guys gonna have? Because that kind of stuff is not cheap. I mean,
if you were the parents, I would encourage that.
100%. Yeah. I mean, you don't want to discourage this type of business acumen. At the age of 13. Jeez. But yeah. At the same time, though, we've got 2 other personal issues going on. We've got Claudia, who has introduced the fact that she is flunking science. And I will say, when I heard she was flunking science, I was like, you don't hear a lot of kids flunking science. Usually they're flunking math, or they're flunking history. Or this was the first time I heard somebody flunking science. I was like,
fair.
Wow, okay, all right. You know, I couldn't relate. I always did the one I was, I never flunked anything, but the one I always got the closest to, I hate math. Math sucks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, oh, she can't get science.
Science wasn't her bag. I think, and I think as well, science is such a broad term. Like sometimes she was doing human body stuff.
Right.
And then it felt more like, oh, like I could understand if you don't do good at chemistry or something like that, like one aspect of it.
Right. But yeah, I mean, it's all obviously, elementary, primary school level. So it's I mean, I was looking at her test and I was like, I could do that now.
I don't know. They were saying some of the human body stuff. I'm like, I didn't learn that till university.
Oh, okay, sure. I mean, yeah, some of the stuff, because they do like a little rap for her later to help her remember those things. And I was like, some of that stuff, but when I was looking at the test, because they show us the test, at a certain point in the film, and when I was looking at the test, I was like, because it's all multiple choice anyway, and I was like, I can take that now. And I haven't.
Are you smarter than an 8th grader?
Apparently, yeah. So I'm just like, okay, that's another thing. Yeah, I didn't really think about it. I guess they are in 8th grade. Yeah, I would think that's like a 5th grade level science test. I'm just saying. But that aside, so that is Claudia's issue. And the girls band together. Christy specifically says she's going to help with that, which brings in the second issue. Christy's dad, and we are introduced to the fact that her biological parents are divorced and split up when bio dad shows up, because they don't really, explain that until, because, at first I'm like, I thought Bruce Davison was your dad. What's going on here?
This was one of my biggest questions, actually. Is like, I've watched it and I'm bringing a lot of what I know from the series to it. So I'm picking up on a lot of like the kids' names. I know that which are the step siblings of Christie's and which is her biological brother. So like, I'm knowing all this. And I was really curious for you, like, was it just like, who's that? What's this? Like, could you make the connections? Because I'm just doing it naturally.
I will say, I know when I thought back that they introduced it when they introduced the characters, but I did not remember that Marianne and Dawn were stepsisters until they did that scene. Are you still my sister? And I was like, your sisters? Oh yeah, that's right. Like honestly, there was a lot that was introduced out of the blue that I was just like, well, what's that about? Or, oh, I didn't know that was a thing. Like the whole scene where, because basically the plot is that now that Christy's dad is back in town, he, like an asshole, tells her that she's not allowed to tell anyone he's in town. And
so wrong.
Yeah, it's so messed up. And so she basically spends the entire rest of the time basically shirking her responsibilities to be with him, but without being able to tell any of her friends where she is going or why she is doing it.
Yeah, it just looks super sus that she's running off with this older gentleman in a van, like in the 90s.
Yeah, to the point where the first time it happens, the girls are like, do you have a boyfriend? What's going on here? And, the fact that it's her dad just makes that kind of gross. I mean, I want to get back to the point and then I'll, because this is one of my soapbox things. But because of that, there is an issue introduced where she goes off to spend time with her dad and forgets to get her brother and take him home. I forgot that was her brother. I just see this boy running around and I was like, what's important about this boy?
Because also we have the other kid that she plays baseball with, like two
right.
young kids that she's
confused.
got a close relationship. I can see that.
Yeah, and honestly, because they did briefly, we see the kid is so bad at batting that he hits his own feet. Yeah, but honestly, after that intro, they kept going back to him. And I don't know if it was just the way that they framed the scenes, but I didn't remember what was important about that kid. Partially because the only time I had seen him before, he had, I think, like a helmet and stuff on. So I didn't recognize him as well.
Yeah.
So I didn't put that stuff together. There was a lot of stuff that did kind of come out of nowhere for me. But again, it wasn't enough to put me off of the movie or anything like that. It was more just like, oh, what is this? Oh, it's the okay. I'm
They could have threaded it a bit better when she asks Jessie to look after her stuff and David Michael comes up to her. Like it could have just been one off line, like Chrissy's supposed to walk me home.
I mean,
something like
I will say though, because we are dealing with young actors, there's not a lot of attention to important dialogue because a lot of times it all comes out the same. So you don't necessarily know what part was important until later when it comes back. So, so I don't know if even a piece of dialogue would have really helped because I might not have picked it up because it wasn't delivered as important.
Not as important as alligators like to fly, which is one of my all-time favorite lines from this film.
Absolutely. But like I said, I do have an issue, a soapbox issue with the whole dad thing because, and I'm skipping ahead a little bit here because ultimately what ends up happening with dad is that, they play this out. She even tells him at a certain point, I can't keep lying for you. We need to, because, I get why she couldn't tell her mom, but I really didn't understand why she wasn't allowed to tell her friends. That really seemed, I mean, honestly, it feels really skeevy and manipulative. Is
I would think for him, because even straight away when he sees Marianne, he's like, you're Richard Spears' little girl. Because in the books, they grew up next to each other. And Chrissy and Marianne were like sisters before Dawn came in. And Chrissy's mum remarried and she moved away. Yeah. So maybe he thinks that the more people you're going to tell, it's going to get to the parents, it's going to get around. Stony Brook's a small town.
Sure.
But it's not right.
No,
it's not right at all.
No, and it is not fair to put that type of stress on a child. No. And I'm just going to say this right now. If you are ever in any type of relationship with a man and he tells you you can't tell anyone or you shouldn't tell anyone or any variation of that, red flag, sirens going off. No, we're not playing that game because it's bad news, because that means that they know that there is a reason that no one else should know this, which means that you should know there is a reason you should not take part in this.
Yes, very much so.
But my issue is, and you said that you think mom summed up dad well, at least. I will say I don't think anyone in this film comes down on as hard on dad as they should.
No, just I'll wring his neck isn't enough.
No. It's I mean, if this had happened in a situation I was connected with, it is okay. If you ever see him again, you tell him he is not to have contact with you unless it goes to me. We're going to lawyers. We are taking this through the courts because what you did was supremely messed up. You manipulated my child, and forced her to lie to me for months. You'd be lucky if you're even allowed, visitation
any
with
contact.
Visitation that mom is there for, much less, separate visitation. Like that's totally not okay.
I could definitely see something like that, like happening, especially like nowadays, and maybe in a non-Hollywood version. I think Mum sums it up in the Hollywood way, in the sense like your father has dreams. He's very charismatic. He's a wanderer. He's chasing his baseball dreams.
And again, they're treating it like you would treat the actor, because he's a very nice, charismatic type person. Affable, it's like, this wasn't great. Don't do it again. He's charming.
You went about it the wrong way.
But we'll give it a pass. No, we do not give that a pass. I don't care how good looking the guy is.
I do like that Christy says, though, like, yes, Dad loves me, but not in the way that you and Watson love me. Like, I think that's a cool part of that sum up, though.
Yes. No, that was that actually, I another line that I liked in that scene is because Christy starts, she was like, well, maybe I should do it this way next time. And she's like, Mom's like, you're not supposed to be the adult in this situation.
Yeah.
And I was like, thank you for that, because that's absolutely true. But yeah, no, this man should never be allowed to see her without, oversee,
supervised.
Supervision. I don't know why I couldn't come up with the word supervision again, like for years after this. And it's really just treated like, well, that's Dad.
Yeah. I've got something to posit to you, because something else that I've watched recently, and they're two movies that growing up in the 90s, like, really exposed me to different family situations. This one, like with her dad, like I'd never seen a situation like that. I'd never been exposed. It wasn't like part of my thing. Also with Mrs. Doubtfire. Mrs. Doubtfire is one that I've recently rewatched, where parents are separated and it's dad's trying to reconnect or keep with children. Is it somewhat similar in the sense that Robin Williams' character deceives the mum? Is there anything there, or where's the difference lie?
Just in comparison, I mean, I will say, see, that's a little bit tricky, because there is deceit, but it's, number one, he at no point intends on getting the kids involved in this lie. It's not until they figure it out for themselves and they kind of take part, because they want to spend time with him. I mean, it's still not a great idea to be but it doesn't feel as gross as this does. Because honestly, this feels like a manipulative relationship more than like a father-daughter situation,
especially because, like, I don't know how long they said, it's been like 5 years or something, so she would have been 8. Like, it's a really significant chunk of time until he's come back.
So I mean, it's just, again, when they're together, it's nice.
It's played so well when they're playing the baseball.
And it's really hard not to like him in those moments. But when you remember,
and you see how Christy would get suckered into having that.
Absolutely. But let's see. So those are like the main things going on. There is another subplot that we haven't mentioned yet.
The other really problematic thing.
Yes, which is, I'm sure you guessed, was my other soapbox. Because very early in the film, we are introduced to the character of Stacy goes to one of her regular babysitting things, and she's been called and told, oh, cousin's in town. He's from, out of the country. And so she thinks that this cousin is around the same age as the kid that she babysits, and comes in with like an American flag and like ready to do all this stuff. No, he is a 17-year-old child. Keep in mind that this babysitter is 13. Yes. And it is, that scene is, I mean, it's introduced pretty early on how old he is.
Yes. He drives, he's a musician, all that. Yeah.
Right. It's explained pretty early on how old he is. But they start kind of like a budding romance and, asking to go out and all this kind of stuff. And yes, granted, her age has not been brought up. And when you look at the two of them together, you wouldn't just assume that there's as big of an age gap as there is.
Stacy presents much older.
Yes. But the fact that she is 13 somehow does not come up until
3/4 of the movie. Yeah.
She has been allowed to go to New York with this child that everyone in her life knows is 17 and goes to a club where they card her. First of all, I'm like, 17-year-olds have IDs? I mean,
that's what I didn't understand either.
Maybe in New York they do, but a 13-year-old definitely doesn't have an ID.
No. What card are you pulling out? Like your library card?
No. So, first of all, my issue is because here's the thing. They're making it seem like, it's a little weird right now, but really age is just a number kind of thing, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, I'm sorry. At that, in your teens, until you get in your 20s, 4 years is a big gap. Now, if she were 20 and he was 24, no big deal. But 17 to 13 is a big deal. And the fact that Mom, again, it's never explicitly said in front of Mom how old he is. But the first thing, when I know I have a 13-year-old daughter that looks like Stacy does, and I see this child, first thing I'm asking is, excuse me, how old are you? Never brought up.
She's wary, but not off-put when he comes to pick her up for the hike.
But and I can't remember the exact line, but later she seems to be like encouraging this, which I'm like, oh,
yeah, he's pretty good on that harmonica.
On their dates with them, no, and then she says it's okay for my 13-year-old girl to go to her dad's who lives in New York, explicitly to hang out with this 17-year-old. And it is said that dad gives him the third degree about what they're going to be doing. But I'm wondering, did the age of this kid, again, not come up? And when he told dad what they were doing, did he not think, oh, she might not be allowed to do that? No one
exactly. It would have red flagged that they were going to a club before, like, let alone a 17-year-old in care of two 13-year-olds on the streets of New York.
Honestly, this is a film that, for the most part, with, again, some situations where I don't think parents come down as hard on certain situations as they should. For the most part, the parents seem rather responsible. But here is a gross negligence of responsibility.
It's got the Hollywood treatment for sure. Like, they're just not going to get in the way of the scene.
So messed up. And at the end, when it's revealed that she's 13, he's just like,
13?
Yeah, I can't believe you're 13. This is insane. All of a sudden, I'm like, because at one point, when they go to the club, he goes, oh, she's fine. She's 16. We never got the dialogue where she told him she was 16.
No, he's assumed the whole time because he said, I thought you might not be quite 16. So he thought maybe 15 at the youngest, I reckon.
Right. But still, you ask. My goodness, dude, you ask. But then the thing that really got me towards the end of the film, number one, they kiss.
This bit. I know exactly the line. Do it.
He's like, I'm coming back next year. She goes, I'll be 14.
I'll be 14.
And I'm like, yes. And he will be 18 which is legally not a minor. Actually worse. Actually worse.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that when I rewatched that recently, I'm like, oh, that was not as romantic because as a kid,
oh, sure,
everyone seems older. So I'm watching this and I'm like, not problematic at all. So when I've gone back to it as a grown adult, I'm like, oh, that was not as romantic and dreamy. And oh, I wish that was happening to me as when I watched it when I was, say, 10. Because everyone did seem more older and more glamorous and things. So I'm like, no, that was a really big issue. No. That's Dateline level stuff.
No, I was about to say, at the very least, he's going to be accused of, what's the term? Grooming.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
At the very least. It's just... honestly, though, this was in the 90s.
And it was Boy Crazy Stacy. That was like one of the book titles and things like that. So it's not unheard of from the novels, I think.
Sure. But, this is the same decade that the film Blank Check came out. In a film in which we are made to feel that a potential eventual relationship between a child who is currently 10 and a woman who is at least in her late 20s is a positive thing that we should root for.
It was dating older people was like just the thing. Like it was very the mentality at the time.
Right. Yeah. It just, oh, wow.
Yeah, that's the one I'm like, oh, that is like the dad stuff I still think plays well. Makes a lot of sense. It's still like a good story.
It's really just the one thing at the end. I just wish mom had been more angry,
more serious consequences.
Yes, more serious consequences. Like this is not okay. Because I didn't mention the fact that the last time they're supposed to get together, dad doesn't show up, and she ends up going to an amusement park by herself and really putting herself in danger. Like
really the level of danger for sure.
Yes, really some not good things going on there. But the 13 to 17-year-old romance was just irresponsible.
That's not the resolution.
The word no.
That's not the way it should have been.
No.
I'll be 14. Oh, it's so gross. It's so bad. Yeah. Oh, anyway, back to the soapboxes.
Yes. Those, like I said, those are my main soapboxes. Those
and fair. Really they are the two biggest things
issues that I had with the film. But
yes,
other than that, I found the film pretty pleasant. We haven't talked a lot about some of the kids in this cast. So I'm just going to kind of go down and we are going to mention, basically the lead of the film. The girls, the main girls all have like a little bit here and there, but the main lead I would say is Christy, played by Skylar Fisk, who the only other thing I think that I have seen her from is Snow Day.
Okay.
And when I saw her, I was like, where do I know her from? Because that was like
another Nickelodeon.
5 years. Yeah, it was 5 years later in 1999. But I loved Snow Day mainly because you could tell by watching it, this script was originally written to be a Pete and Pete movie. And they when the kids aged out, they just basically recast it and took out but there is a subplot in that film. The whole thing with the principal and the stoplight is straight out of an episode of Pete and Pete.
I wouldn't put it past it because just that Nickelodeon Studios vibe for sure.
Right. But in that, she plays the love interest of the older kid lead. But she is also, I didn't know this, she's the daughter of Sissy Spacek.
Oh.
Yeah. And she's still working. and she's an actor, singer, songwriter, and I think her last credit, she had a credit from this past year.
Fantastic.
So she's still working pretty steadily. And then of course you've got Rachel Lee Cook. I mean, everyone knows Rachel Lee Cook.
Yeah.
She's
all that and Josie and the Pussycats.
Josie and the Pussycats. I was thrilled to see her have a recurring role on the show Psych. Loved her in that as Sean's girlfriend. Hated actually when they took her off the show. Because it's Rachel Lee Cook.
It's still that name that carries like a certain sentimentality with like a lot of people who did watch a lot of films in like the late 90s and things like that. Because I think she's that particular. You just always be a fan.
You are gonna get the crowd from the early 2000s that we're all in love with her. They're gonna be all on board to see whatever Rachel Lee Cook is doing. And then again, like I said, Dawn is played by Larissa Oleynik. And I will say, Dawn is, I guess, kind of the environmentalist of the group. She's vegetarian and she's all about being green and stuff like that. I will say the subplot that they give her is the most disposable, because it's basically Marianne's boyfriend, who is what's his name?
Alan.
No. Alan is the friend.
Logan. Marianne's boyfriend is Logan.
Logan, yes. Marianne's boyfriend is Logan, played by Austin O'Brien, who, I mean, he didn't do a lot of big stuff, but he was often the male love interest to the female lead in a lot of films around this time.
Cool.
Yeah,
checks out.
He was also the love interest of Anna Klumsky in My Girl 2. Yeah, that's honestly what I remember him from the most. But he was also apparently in the sequel to Lawnmower Man. Yeah, which, I mean, the original Lawnmower
not the career
Man
choice that you want.
No. But he was also the kid from Last Action Hero. Which again, the film didn't do well, but it's being, a lot of people that revisit that film actually say that there's a lot of actually some interesting stuff in there. Yeah. But his friend, as you said, Alan, we know from the moment that we first see him that he is in love with Dawn. I mean, Larissa Oleynik. I get it.
Who isn't?
Yeah, exactly. But my thing with him is that he's quirky, but like not in a relatable way. He's just
so over the top.
Weird for the sake of being weird. And there's a certain point at which we are made to believe that is not genuine. Because there's a line that he says to Logan where he's like, I thought you said the last thing I should do is be myself. I was like, you're putting that on because you think that's impressive?
Yes. Yes.
Oh boy.
That checks out. There's one time he's like, it makes me want to fly. And he flaps his wings and runs around. And then he meows. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
But I like the end when he asks her out with the flowers. That's
the only thing about that. I thought that was sweet.
Yeah.
But the very next scene where we see them, and you would assume, because he was like, do you want to go to the movies tonight? You would assume that their date has happened since this next time that we've seen them. And he puts his arm around her and she slides out.
Oh, I saw that.
And I was like, oh, apparently that date did not go well.
Maybe they didn't film it in order or something like that. Like, I don't know. But yes, that still gave very like, okay, he's still dweeby. I'm not 100% on board with this.
Right. But I'm just thinking, like, that makes it seem like yeah, this relationship is not going to be a thing.
It's not going to anyway.
No,
like it's very thrown together at the end. Like no one else has asked me out, so I'm going to say yes. It gave me very that from her.
I mean, I was like, that's kind of a sweet. I wish that they had left it there. Giving us that moment where she pulls away, I'm like, whoa, okay, sorry, dude. That is your entire subplot in this film was pointless.
Pretty much. I think it's just to have another male character in there more than likely.
Right.
But when you said subplot, I thought you were going to talk about her and Ellen Burstyn, which we haven't talked about yet.
Right. Yeah, I was getting there. I mean, that's really just like one or two scenes though. But yes, she really is one of the only kids that, and I will say, when I saw Ellen Burstyn's name in the credits, I was immediately like, ooh, because I love Ellen Burstyn. I will say the only thing though is I constantly get her and Ellen Barkin confused.
Oh, fair.
And well, I mean, because they're both Ellen B. And I'm like, I know who Ellen Burstyn is and I know who Ellen Barkin is, but when you just say the name, I'm like, okay, which one is that? Is that the woman from the Last Picture Show, or is that the woman from Ocean's 13? Because that's really all I really know Ellen Barkin from. I know she's done a lot of other things aside from that, but that's the thing I know her from the most. But Ellen Burstyn is amazing. Yes. I will say,
from mid-90s.
Oh, absolutely. I will say I wish that we had gotten a little bit more of her. I liked that because at first, basically, she lives next to where they end up having the day camp. And she's the only new neighbor that is not familiar with this. And she's also the only neighbor that because there's a scene where they're like, are the neighbors going to be okay with it? And they're like, oh, yeah, they're all fine. Well, what about your new neighbor? Oh, I'm sure it won't be a big deal. You don't ask?
That's a kid's mentality.
It's true. It's
Hermit.
Yeah. Because a couple of times she gets, some blowout from the camp. And eventually she's like, if I have another issue, I'm going to call the city and have your permit revoked. And they're just like, yeah, our permit. We got one of the. I will say, though, the way that they play it off, like Ellen Burstyn is obviously not paying attention because the way they play it up, it's obvious they do not have a permit. If I had been her, I would have been like, oh, yeah, no permit?
Caught that. Yeah.
But I mean, yes. So, Dawn does form a bit of a because they both relate to plants, they both enjoy the environment, that kind of thing. And so they kind of form a bit of a bond, a bit of a relationship, and that kind of ends up smoothing things over for the rest of the camp to the point where she actually advocates for them. And again, another what ends up being pointless subplot where they find an old greenhouse that they want to turn into their new headquarters because at this point they are running their business out of Claudia's bedroom. And, because it's got a phone and it's closest to everybody else and all of that good stuff. And but they think that they need to expand. They need to have their own place, but it's a greenhouse, so they're constantly like, it's too hot in here. And they also never mention the fact that this place does not have a phone line.
First of all, because they run it out of Claudia's room, like having her own phone line, that was peak girl in the like in the 90s. Like you were fancy, that was unheard of. Like how I dreamed of having my own phone line. If it was one of those clear phones where you could see all the bits in it as well. Yeah, absolutely. That was the tea. That was the go. But even as a kid, I was like, it's a greenhouse. Like I never understood that either. And even now I'm like, why would you want that to be your office? And I agree, there's no phone line. So what's the point?
No.
No, Christy says we can put the phone banks over there. Did you hear her say that?
I missed that. Wow.
She's like, the phone banks go over here. I'm like,
yeah,
what?
yeah. They're intending to put in phone lines. Okay. Yeah. Dreaming here, kids. But yeah, eventually they realize how unrealistic that plan is, even after, again, Ellen Burstyn goes to bat for them with the city council to insist that they let these kids have this place, and then they realize, actually, we don't want it. And I'm just like, well, then what was the point of this? But they give it to her so that she can grow her plants. And I'm like, okay, at least something came out of this pointless storyline.
They've tried to thread it back in. And the fact that they have no money at the end of it.
Yes. Yeah.
That hurts.
Well, because at one point they mention that if they have the kids for the time of basically they say we have the potential to earn over $7,000. They end up with around 100 and something.
Yes. Where's all that money from?
Yeah, and then when they decide to buy plants and stuff for Ellen Burstyn,
it's like $11.
to turn it into all they have left, I think $18, because it's enough for them to buy a pizza and a salad for Dawn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah. I'm just like, well, that's what comes from all that overhead, guys.
Didn't, and that is so like
you guys said at the age of 13, you spent $6,000.
But it would go, I think, like with all the supplies they bought, and they said it, and you don't. Like, they had those lofty dreams.
When I see all the stuff they have set up, I don't wonder where that money went. But at the same time, I'm just like, wow, that you just spent that money.
Because how long would the summer camp have run for? 4 weeks, 5 weeks? How long would it have run for? How long would a summer camp run for?
10 to 12 weeks.
Whoa.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, because summer is about, I mean, depending on when your school year starts, it's a little less than 3 months. So, yeah, we're talking 10 to 12 weeks.
Then I can somewhat see if like they got all that money up front, that it's petered out if they're doing, because they're doing all these activities. They're doing like cow people
I was
day
about to say, I'm looking at this stuff and I'm like, I wish I had gone to this. I wish they were my babysitters. It would have been great. But yeah. So continuing, I mean, I want to start wrapping this up pretty soon, but I do want to just mention, you know, some of the other people in the cast. I will say she doesn't have, I think this was one of, in fact, I think it was the last thing that she did, but Trisha Joe as Claudia, I actually thought was really good. I actually really enjoyed her performance in this. Now, I will say that I saw two different things about where she is now. One was put out after the other one, and it was like, we looked at her Instagram, and she's like a lawyer and doing all of these things. And then another thing I saw said that she died in 2021.
Oh, okay.
Not to say both couldn't be true, but the article came out in 2022, and they didn't decide to mention that she was dead.
Okay.
So I don't know. I mean, if she did pass, that's sad. That's unfortunate. But you know, it sounds like, you know, she put together a pretty good professional life for herself at the very least. So,
well, when we were talking at the beginning about some of the dialogue being a bit stilted, I thought this is what we might have been referring to, because I find her performance
at the beginning,
hard.
Yes. Towards the end, after, you know, when she's dealing with the big, you know, I might flunk, and then when she passes, when they are friendly at the end,
I agree.
was one of my highlights.
Yeah, she comes through at the end big time.
In those later scenes. But yeah, definitely at the beginning, she's a little bit more stilted, which makes me think that they filmed a lot of the earlier scenes, earlier. Probably because they realized that because even before she did this movie, I think she'd only done 2 other things before that, in smaller things. I think this was like the biggest thing she ever did, and this isn't a super well-known movie, so but yeah, I thought she was pretty good there towards the end, and like I mentioned, we've got Brie Blair as Stacey McGill. She's a Canadian actress, and I think she's still working as well.
A lot of people have made a really good later career, TV career.
Yeah.
A lot of people have popped up on stuff, which is great.
Yeah.
Because you're right. It's the cast and the chemistry are what I really like about this film, and what probably does keep me coming back to it. I like the real moments of friendship they have in it. So like Christy and Claudia, I find a really true to life friendship, in the sense like it's a bit clashing personalities, but you're still friends at the end of the day.
What I feel like we were really seeing towards the end of the film was not just them progressing as actresses, but them having probably spent a lot of time with each other on the set, and them actually being friends.
Very true. I think so too.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we're seeing real chemistry playing out here. But I'm just gonna kind of skip ahead, because unfortunately a lot of the others have done less. I mean, you've got Zelda Harris as Jessie, who's worked pretty progressively, but in a lot of smaller things. Vanessa Zima as one of the kids, again, worked steadily in smaller things. But Luca, the 17-year-old, played by Christian Oliver, and I will say I definitely remember seeing this guy in a few things around this time, and I didn't actually remember this, but apparently he had at least a 1-season stint on Saved by the Bell: The New Class.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. I think. Okay, so he wasn't in the first, because that show was plagued. The first season of that show did not go well. And so they pretty much fired everybody with the exception of like 1 or 2 kids. I mean, honestly, very similar to the original Saved by the Bell, where they retooled it after the first season and really only kept like 3 kids from the original cast. So very similar. But they ended up like bringing a new lead, and I think they demoted the guy who was the original lead to like a dumb jock role. Carrying on. I will say I don't super remember him from the show, but apparently he was also only there for like 1 season. Yeah. But yeah, and he actually is a German actor. I will say at first I thought, wait a sec, probably because when he said his name was Luca, I know a young man whose name is Luca, and he's Russian, straight up Russian. So I was thinking, wait a second, why are they having a German actor play a Russian kid? That doesn't make any sense. I don't know if they ever actually said where he's from.
I think it's Switzerland.
Is it? I mean, that
or Sweden or something. One of them.
That makes more sense than Russian, because at least Sweden,
Scandinavia,
like it's similar background. Yeah. But yeah, that makes more sense than Russian. But let's see. Yes. Okay. And then I do want to briefly, again, we have already mentioned Ellen Burstyn and Peter Horton, but I want to talk briefly about some of the adults in this, because you've got Bruce Davison, that, as I mentioned, as Watson, Christie's stepdad. And then Bruce Davison, one of the bigger things that I think most people would know him from is he's the senator in the original X-Men movie.
Yes.
But he's also, he's Academy Award nominated. He's been working for a long time. I've seen him on a bunch of television shows and stuff as well.
One of those guys for sure.
Exactly. He's very familiar. You might not know his name, but you would probably recognize him if you saw him. But then her mom is played by Brooke Adams, who was in like Invasion of the Body Snatchers and one of my favorite movies, The Dead Zone, with Christopher Walken. Have you ever seen that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have not seen it, but I'm familiar. Yeah.
Okay.
I need to add that to my list.
I was about to say, I know we've already said that there's potential for another film, but we might want to add this because, I mean,
we'll do a dead double feature. Better Off Dead in the Dead Zone. There it is.
I mean, I've had a hard time covering. I mean, we were only covering one movie and we've already gone longer than I intended just for this. Might be hard, but we'll figure it out. But yeah, no, the ice is gonna break. Brilliant. But yeah, she plays his love interest in that. I mean, Brooke Adams, just great actor. I mean, a lot of the other more recognizable names are actually from some of the younger kids. You've got Scarlett Palmer's, who went on to be on both Star Trek Voyager and Reba.
Oh, okay.
And then Kyla Pratt, who was in the Dr. Dolittle movies and has done a bunch of stuff with the Disney Channel and things like that. And I will say we haven't mentioned her character yet because she's kind of the antagonist of the group. But and I forgot how much she played the antagonist in stuff during this. She was kind of the go-to bad girl.
She gives major bad girl vibes and energy.
Yeah, to the point where she was originally like on Full House. She was Stephanie's bully and then became her best friend, which was a weird track. But Marla Sokoloff, who again, huge crush on her as a kid. Appeared in a bunch of, honestly, the thing I know her most from, aside from Full House, is a late 90s, early 2000s legal drama called The Practice.
Sure.
That show is bonkers. Just gonna say that right now. I've been rewatching some of it and is it interesting? But yeah, I mean, so that is the cast. I mean, is there anything else that you want to specifically talk about before we wrap this up?
Just as you said, I love the pleasantness and the delightfulness of the film, like them just hanging out, doing this summer camp. I just like the premise of it all. And I think it's executed well. When it's those summer camp scenes, they're fun and they're joyous. Oh, the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack is really great. There's some of those real upbeat mid-90s songs in it. So I think that supports it a lot. So when they're doing those scenes of summertime and hanging out together, I think it's got a good soundtrack that's doing that. Kelli Mehan, I'll touch on really quickly. Like, I do like her as the antagonist of the Babysitters Club, but they're so wholesome and she thinks she's so bad and really thinks she's stealing Logan from Marianne and doing all these schemes and stuff. But really, they were right. They wasted their whole summer.
100%. But yeah, so we are going to go ahead and we are going to, I have started rating the films on all of my podcasts. So I think this is the first time we've done it on Nostalgia Cal, but it's, as I said on other podcasts, for any podcast that doesn't already have its own rating system, this is the new Flying Cow rating system. So you can give the film 1 of 3 grades. You can give it either, most films are average. It's decent. It's okay. There's nothing extraordinary about it, but it's also not bad. It's just average. That is a cow.
Okay.
All right. And then you've got those films that vary from really good to this is one of the best things I've ever seen. That is a flying cow. Okay. And then you've got those films that range from bad to, oh my God, this is one of the worst fucking things I've seen in my life.
So bad it's good. Yes.
And
okay.
that is not cow. So we've got flying cow, cow, or not cow. It's just okay. It's not even in the realm. On that scale, Kelli, what would you give the Babysitters Club?
I give the Babysitters Club movie probably just cow, but it's very inching to flying cow for me for the reasons I said of like, I think it holds up as a nostalgia film. There's a few problematic things, but like I wouldn't hesitate to maybe like show this to the current generation. I think you would still get enjoyment out of it because I think those bigger themes of friendship and the storyline are still good. So I think it's high average. It's high cow. It's a high cow. Okay. All right. It's a very spotty, beautiful cow.
I would call this a cow as well. I will say once again, the story's not strong. There's a lot of things that they kind of just take for granted that they don't really explain. A lot of things that just come out of nowhere. But the strength of this film is the cast. It is those girls. They're just very likable. You enjoy spending time with them. And so for that, I have to give it a cow. I could actually see myself, it would be easier if it was on streaming, but I could see myself putting this on as something in the background. While I'm working on something else, because I could look up from it and, see something that's like, oh, well, that's nice. And
pick up a cute scene, a funny line here and there, because it's surprisingly funny.
Yeah. There's some decent jokes in there, here and there. But like I said, most of all, it's just pleasant. And even, when you're talking about children's entertainment, you got to think, would you suggest this to kids now? And I actually think I would. I think that, again, if you could find a preteen, early teen child who's willing to sit down and actually watch a movie and not TikTok or YouTube, then yeah, I think it would be a pleasant watch. And, as long as you're not worried about the fact that your young boys are going to be in love with all of these girls that are, played by women that are now in their 40s, it's fine. Yeah. But yeah, like I said, a cow from me as
nice.
So with that, I want to go ahead and give everyone the opportunity to get into contact with us. So as always, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at The Flying Cow Pod. You can also email me at theflyingcowpod at gmail.com. You can also, there's a Facebook page. Just type in The Flying Cow. And do not forget to check out all of our podcasts on the feed. We have discussions, our Disney podcast. We have this one. We have the Flying Cows movie list, where we talk about films that myself or the guest has never seen. We also have movie battles, our Disney Pixar movie trivia show. Kelli is the former champion. From there, who knows, you might see her there again at some point. And also don't forget to check out, we have a podcast that will be coming back sometime this year, The Academy, where we take a particular year, we choose a few films from it, we watch them, and we decide what we would choose as best picture. And then, of course, also don't forget to check out the patreon.com/theflyingcow, where you can find all sorts of exclusive things, including the video version of this podcast. And You can also find our Patreon exclusive podcast, Around the Worrell, where we talk all things Ernest P. Worrell. We actually just reviewed the short-lived children's show, Hey Vern, It's Ernest, and that was interesting. So I encourage you to check that out. But yeah, if you're still with us after that big long spiel, Kelli, do you have anything that you would like to tell people about?
Yep, check out my podcast, which Clay's got to be a part of, the Muppet Movie episode, still one of the all-time greats. My podcast is Doing Disney. You can find me at Doing Disney Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And then I'm over at the Video Store, co-hosting the Late Shift at the Video Store every fortnight. So you can find me there.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, like I said, thanks again, as always, for watching. We will be back next time reviewing something else from someone's childhood. But until then, moo.